Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of A Page I Love. This is Kevin Sharp. Today I'm joined by publisher Chris Ryall, who currently has a imprint through Image Comics called Syzygy. Chris, welcome to Comic Art Live, and thank you so much for
Hey,
joining
Kevin.
us. So, you have chosen a beloved artist, but maybe a book that isn't the first that comes to mind when people think of this artist. Please tell us what your pick is for today.
Yeah, so I picked a page from Fantastic Four number 164, which was penciled by George Perez and inked by Joe Sinnott. Yeah, and I can get into the reasons why, but one of the main reasons why is because this is a page from the very first comic book that I ever bought with my own money, which was probably raised from, I don't know, doing household chores or something like that.
Were you a Fantastic Four reader when you would have bought this? Where were you in your comics fandom at this point?
I mean, this was like the very start of my fandom and my collecting. I had read the very first comic I ever read was one that the neighbors kids down the block had, and it was an issue of Fantastic Four. It was 130, but I was too young to really appreciate it other than just being enamored by the cool visuals. Like that was a book that had this Jim Steranko cover with Frightful Four. So there's all kinds of just colorful characters and larger than life stuff going on. And it was captivating, but I didn't own it. And so the first comic that I ever, like I said, was able to buy myself and own was this Fantastic Four 164. And so because of that, like the book, like that team, that family has always sort of held a revered spot in my head.
As we go into the page itself, what are the things that jump out at you off this when you look at it?
I mean, the thing that I've always been taken by with George is the amount of not only just the detail that he's so well known for. You see there's this the first panel it opens with is kind of odd. It's the Thing and the Invisible Girl, holding on to one of Mr. Fantastic's legs as he's sort of drawing them into them. He's snapping them toward him. And there's a lot of dialogue on the page, as there was in just about every panel of every page back in that time. But so there wasn't really a need to have all that the grounding sort of buildings in the background to really set the scene. Like it would have been fine to just show the characters sort of being pulled through the air to make that same point. But I mean, George, like I say, George was never one to take the easy way out, and so he always put in these extra touches that just made his pages and his panels all just stand out that much more. So I mean, that's kind of the first thing I see when I first look at the page is just that he grounds the characters within the city. They're not just floating in space like a lot of art sometimes is when there's dialogue all around it. But he grounds the scene in you're very aware that it's happening within the confines of a city.
And you actually own the original of this art. Was there a choice of this particular page for some reason, or how did you arrive at this one?
There wasn't a choice. Like I think I had got it through Mike Berkey's Ramita Man site. I just happened upon it. And these kind of pages come up very rarely. Old George Perez pages at all, but certainly the Fantastic Four are hard to find. And so I don't know, just when I saw this, like that it was from this first issue that I owned it. Three of the four panels are big figures. I love the way Perez drew the Thing, and I certainly love the way Joe Sinnott's inks sort of enhanced the rockiness and kind of, throughout Sinnott's work on every Fantastic Four artist, he kept that consistent look and feel. And so I kind of love everything about it anyway. So had I been given a choice, like this would have been one of the top pages I would have gravitated toward. The other thing I love about it is that in the third panel, where they finally join the scene, Reed is kind of drawing his legs back within, but then Johnny's sitting there on the ground in the most ridiculous outfit. This was the very first this issue had the very first date he went on with Frankie Ray, who eventually became Nova, and he shows up in this just ludicrous this cowboy outfit with his vest and these striped pants and this like gaudy shirt. And so you can't make it out in great detail in that panel, but just that you can see that goofy outfit on this page too was kind of another part of its charm for me.
So I'll ask you kind of a big picture question here, no pun intended. When you think of the Fantastic Four and all the great artists who have worked on that book over the decades, where do you think Perez fits?
Third, I mean the Kirby Sinnott run is untouchable, but for me, like especially in the era that I was really reading and loving the book, the Byrne era looms real large for me. But Perez is right there behind him, and maybe not equal only because he didn't do as many issues. The ones he did were great, especially the ones inked by Joe, like I say. But I remember as a kid, even before I knew creators' names, I didn't, you just read the stuff as kids and looked at the pictures and read the words, but you didn't pay attention to the credits too much. But there was something about George's early work, and same with John Burns, that I knew there was something I don't want to say greater because that's very subjective, but there was something about their styles that stood out to me as special. And so George, even before Byrne, was the single artist I think that stood out to me the most as just, I don't know, hitting all my sweet spots, just doing something that were just what I wanted superhero comics to look like.
Chris, that's a perfect note to end on. Thank you so much again for joining us.
Happy to talk to you. Thanks, Kevin.